If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then a graph is worth 10,000 words. Today's episode came in from one of our Street Stats viewers. They were asking about the value of a cube plot in DOE. So when we do designed experiments or DOE, with a small amount of information, we get a lot of statistical information. The more we can graph the information, the better. We're going to walk through a simple designed experiment. Now, what you will see is our output variable is yield. Higher is better. We're going to have three input variables that are all continuous in nature. So let's go to engine room. And while we're going there, please like and subscribe down below. So I have a DOE all made up and ready to go. So you can see over here we have columns A, B, and C. A is varied between 10 and 30. B is varied between 100 and 200. And C is varied between 40 and 60. And in this particular experiment, just to keep it super, super simple, I did a single repetition of each of these test conditions. Now, all these graphs are going to come out, and whether I have a single value or an average of those conditions, it all works great. So we're going to close that out. I've already run the analysis. And so when we first run the analysis, we get a model, and there's different coded and uncoded. If you know what that means, great. If you don't, uncoded is the intuitive one. You just stick in whatever levels and you get the answers. And there's some model statistics, and because the interaction ABC is not pooled in, everything it appears to be 100% R squared. Don't worry about that. What we're more concerned about is what are the graphical outputs. Now, this Pareto effects plot, I think, is super cool, which is that it shows you in priority which of these variables, as you go from low to high, what has the biggest impact. And so we can see that factor AB, and factor A, the interaction of A and B is statistically significant. And so we know that simply because it superimposes this line here. So if we go to factorial plots, you might call them main effects plots, and those are cool. As we go from a low value of A at 10 to a high value of A at 30, our yield decreases. And then B is a similar situation, whereas we go from low to high, yield decreases. Essentially, C is flat. C has nothing to do with it. Um, but we also want to look at interaction plots. And the way you look at interaction plots is you want to see, is there any non-parallelism? And so if you have non-parallelism, then you have an interaction. We can see with AB, the values are about the same for A level of 10, but when we go up to A of 30, those values separate. We can see these lines are non-parallel. Now, for the other two interactions, they happen to lay on top of each other. Don't read anything into that other than there is no interaction. But here we go. Here's the cube plot. Now, with the cube plot, what we have is we have a visualization. Each of those little balls on the corners represents the average of that three-way situation. So you can kind of look at this much like a three-way interaction plot. But back in the old days, we used to use these plots all the time to kind of visualize three-dimensional data that didn't come out in a graph form. So clearly we see that when we're at this left-hand side of A, at A equal 10, we have all high values of yield, and then we're on the other side where we have 30, it's a little bit less, and you can see the difference between the low level of B and the high level of B, and that's what the interaction is. So hopefully that helps out a bit. And so thanks for the question. Please keep them coming in and those topics coming in. And above all else, always visualize the data, if possible, in every way that you can.